A 3-day road trip loop is a small masterpiece of geography and timing. Long enough to change your scenery and your mindset, short enough to feel effortless. The best loops don't just connect attractions like dots on a map. They tell a story of landscapes shaped by tectonics and glaciers, of towns built on mining booms or port trade, of foodways that grew from local soil and sea. What follows are 5 of the strongest long weekend loops in the United States, each designed to be driven in a comfortable 3 days with time to get out of the car and actually meet the place. Start with the Pacific Northwest's most classic circuit, the Olympic Peninsula Loop in Washington. From Seattle, you can catch the ferry to Bainbridge Island, a short crossing that immediately reframes the region as maritime. The loop traces the edge of Olympic National Park, a UNESCO-recognized biosphere reserve where ecosystems stack dramatically. Tide pools and sea stacks on the coast, temperate rainforest in the river valleys, and alpine ridgelines above. In Port Angeles, you're at the gateway to Hurricane Ridge, where the Olympic Mountains rise steeply from sea level, a topographic punch that helps explain why the peninsula holds so many microclimates. The Hoh Rain Forest along the Hoh River is one of the most accessible temperate rainforests on Earth. Big-leaf maple draped in moss, Sitka spruce with trunks like columns, and an understory that glows green even on overcast days. Continue west to the coast for Rialto Beach or the sea stacks at Ruby Beach, where the Pacific meets a shoreline of driftwood and dark sand. This is also a cultural landscape. The Olympic Peninsula is home to sovereign tribal nations, including the Makah, Quileute, Hoh, and Quinault, whose histories here extend back thousands of years. In Neah Bay, the Makah Cultural and Research Center offers a grounded way to understand the region beyond postcards. Practical tip: plan your coastal timing around tide tables. Low tide opens up the best tide pooling and makes some headlands safer to explore. Weather can change fast, and that's part of the peninsula's character. Pack layers and keep your schedule flexible, because the view from Hurricane Ridge can swing from cloud to crystalline in minutes. For a loop that feels almost like a survey course in American geology, aim for northern Arizona's Grand Canyon, Sedona, Flagstaff Loop. Begin in Flagstaff, a high-elevation mountain town built along the old Route 66 corridor and shaped by the lumber era, the railroad, and later the astronomy community, drawn by dark skies. A short drive north brings you to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, where the Colorado River has carved a mile-deep cross-section through nearly 2 billion years of Earth history. The canyon's layers are not just beautiful, they're readable. The Kaibab limestone caps the rim, while older rocks appear as you descend, and the Vishnu schist at the inner gorge speaks to deep time in a way few places can. The canyon is also a living homeland for indigenous peoples, including the Havasupai, Hualapai, Hopi, Navajo Nation, and others. And the modern park sits within a much older cultural world. After the South Rim, head south along Oak Creek Canyon into Sedona, where red sandstone formations glow at sunrise and dusk, and where the town's identity blends art, outdoor recreation, and a long history of filmmaking. Mid-century westerns help cement these cliffs in the American imagination. If you want a quieter counterpoint to Sedona's busiest trailheads, consider a short detour to the volcanic landscapes around Sunset Crater and Wapatki National Monuments near Flagstaff. Sunset Crater's cinder cone rose in the 11th century, reshaping ecosystems and human settlement patterns. Wapatki preserves pueblos that hint at trade networks and community life in an arid land. Travel tip: altitude is the hidden variable here. Flagstaff sits around 7,000 feet, the south rim around 6,800, and Sedona much lower. Hydrate, pace hikes, And remember that summer heat in Sedona can be intense, while the rim may be breezy and cool. If your ideal loop mixes coastal drama with culinary rewards and a strong sense of California's layered history, the Monterey, Big Sur, Paso Robles, Santa Cruz loop is hard to beat. Begin around Monterey, once the capital of Alta California under Spain and later Mexico, long before it became an aquarium town. The Monterey Bay Aquarium itself is more than a family attraction. It's a major research and conservation institution, and its kelp forest exhibits mirror the real underwater forests just offshore, one of the most productive marine ecosystems on the planet. Drive south on Highway 1 into Big Sur, where the Santa Lucia Range drops sharply into the Pacific. The engineering story is part of the experience. The Bixby Creek Bridge, completed in 1932, helped open a coastline that had long been isolated by cliffs and landslides. Stop at Pfeiffer Big Sur State Park for redwoods and river trails, and consider a visit to the Henry Miller Memorial Library, a reminder that Big Sur has long attracted writers and artists seeking both solitude and inspiration. Continue inland toward Paso Robles, a wine region shaped by hot days, cool nights, and limestone-rich soils, conditions that favor Rhone varieties and Zinfandel, among others. The area's hot springs history predates the tasting rooms. Paso Robles was once a wellness stop in the era when mineral baths were a fashionable cure-all. On the return leg, swing north through the agricultural patchwork of the Salinas Valley, John Steinbeck's landscape, then back to Santa Cruz for a boardwalk stroll or a redwood detour in Henry Cowell Redwoods State Park. Practical tip: Highway 1 closures happen in Big Sur due to landslides. Check road conditions before you commit, and build a backup route via US 101 if needed. For a long weekend that feels like a compact atlas of the Northeast, consider the New England Coast and Mountains Loop through New Hampshire and Maine. Portsmouth to Acadia and back through the White Mountains. Portsmouth, New Hampshire, is one of the country's oldest port towns with layers of colonial and maritime history visible in its compact streets. From there, follow the coast into southern Maine, York, Ogunquit, Kennebunkport, where fishing heritage and summer tourism coexist, sometimes uneasily, in towns that still depend on the rhythms of the Atlantic. Continue to Acadia National Park on Mount Desert Island, where granite peaks meet the sea in a landscape shaped by glaciers. The park's carriage roads, commissioned by John D. Rockefeller Jr. in the early 20th century, are an understated marvel, carefully graded, elegantly bridged, and designed for human-scale travel through forests and around ponds. Cadillac Mountain is famous for sunrise views, but Acadia's quieter pleasures often come at lower elevations. The scent of spruce fir woods, the sound of surf at Sand Beach, the geometry of tide and rock at Thunder Hole when conditions are right. Turn inland on day 2 or 3 through Maine's Lake Country and into New Hampshire's White Mountains, where the Presidential Range rises above old notches carved by ice and water. The Mount Washington Auto Road offers a dramatic ascent to weather that can resemble another season entirely. Mount Washington has recorded some of the planet's most extreme winds, and even on mild days, the summit can feel raw and sudden. Travel tip: Acadia requires advanced planning in peak season. Vehicle reservations may be needed for Cadillac Mountain, and parking fills early. Go at dawn, use shuttles where available, and consider shoulder seasons for a calmer experience. Finally, for a loop that blends American music history, civil rights landmarks, and a landscape of rivers and ridges, take the Tennessee Music and Mountains Loop, Nashville to Chattanooga to Great Smoky Mountains and back. Begin in Nashville, where the story of country music intersects with publishing, radio, and migration, an industry built as much on business decisions as on talent. The Ryman Auditorium, once a tabernacle and later the home of the Grand Ole Opry, is a physical archive of that sound. And the Country Music Hall of Fame traces how regional styles became national identity. Drive southeast to Chattanooga, a city that sits at a geographic hinge between the Appalachian Mountains and the Tennessee River. Its Civil War history is significant. Nearby Lookout Mountain and Missionary Ridge were key battle sites in 1863. But Chattanooga's modern identity also includes industrial reinvention and one of the country's most walkable riverfronts. Continue into the Great Smoky Mountains, the most visited national park in the United States, where biodiversity is the headline. Ancient mountains, rich coves, and a climate that nurtures an extraordinary range of plant and animal life. Cades Cove offers a window into Appalachian settlement patterns, with preserved churches, cabins, and fields, though it's also one of the park's most crowded corridors. For a quieter drive, consider the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail near Gatlinburg, or a hike along a less traveled section of the Appalachian Trail. The Smokies are also a cultural landscape shaped by Cherokee history and by the complex story of land use, logging, and conservation that led to the park's creation in the 1930s. Travel tip: treat the Smokies like a weather system. Fog can erase views, rain can arrive without warning, and black bears are real neighbors. Store food properly, keep distance, and never feed wildlife. On the return to Nashville, a stop in a smaller town, like Franklin with its layered Civil War sites, or a barbecue joint off the highway, adds a human-scale epilogue to the mountains. Across all 5 loops, a few principles hold. 3 days means you should choose fewer bases and linger longer. 1 or 2 key overnight stops beat constant hotel hopping. Build your route around morning light and weekday timing. Popular parks and viewpoints are radically different at 7 a.m. than at noon. And when you can, let the loop teach you the place's logic. Why a town exists where it does. Why a road follows a river. Why certain foods dominate a menu. Why architecture changes from one valley to the next. A good long weekend loop doesn't just refresh you. It leaves you with a map in your head that connects land, history, and culture into a story you can retell. One scenic overlook, museum room, and roadside meal at a time.